The Poems and Some Satires of Andrew Marvell, edited by Edward Wright, recorded for LibriVox.org. Section 3. Poems. Eyes and Tears. How wisely nature did decree with the same eyes to weep and see, that having viewed the object vain, they might be ready to complain. And since the self-deluding sight in a false angle takes each height, these tears, which better measure all, like watery lines and plummets fall. 2 tears, which sorrow long did weigh within the scales of either eye, and then paid out in equal poise, are the true price of all my joys. What in the world most fair appears, yea, even laughter, turns to tears, and all the jewels which we prize melt in these pendants of the eyes. I have through every garden been, amongst the red, the white, the green, and yet from all the flowers I saw, no honey but these tears could draw. So the all-seeing sun each day distills the world with chymic ray, but finds the essence only showers, which straight in pity back he pours. Yet happy they whom grief doth bless, that weep the more and see the less, and to preserve their sight more true, bathe still their eyes in their own dew. So Magdalen in tears more wise dissolved those captivating eyes, whose liquid chains could flowing meet to fetter her Redeemer's feet. Not full sails hasting loaden home, nor the chaste lady's pregnant womb, nor Cynthia teeming, shows so fair as 2 eyes swoln with weeping are. The sparkling glance that shoots desire, drenched in these waves does lose its fire. Yea, oft the thunderer pity takes, and here the hissing lightning slakes. The incense was to heaven dear, not as a perfume, but a tear. Note the incense as it oozed in drops from the Arabian tree. And stars show lovely in the night, but as they seem the tears of light. Ope then, mine eyes, your double sluice, and practice so your noblest use, for others too can see or sleep, but only human eyes can weep. Now like 2 clouds dissolving, drop, and at each tear in distance stop. Now like 2 fountains trickle down, now like 2 floods o'erturn and drown. Thus let your streams o'erflow your springs, till eyes and tears be the same things, and each the other's difference bears, these weeping eyes, those seeing tears. The Coronet. When for the thorns with which I long, too long, with many a piercing wound, my Saviour's head have crowned, I seek with garlands to redress that wrong. Through every garden, every mead, I gather flowers, my fruits are only flowers, dismantling all the fragrant towers that once adorned my shepherdess's head. And now, when I have summed up all my store, thinking, so I myself deceive, so rich a chaplet thence to weave as never yet the King of Glory wore, alas, I find the serpent old, that twining in his speckled breast about the flowers disguised, does fold with wreaths of fame and interest. Ah, foolish man, that wouldst debase with them and mortal glory heaven's diadem! But thou, who only couldst the serpent tame, either his slippery knots at once untie, and disentangle all his winding snare, or shatter too with him my curious frame, and let these wither, so that he may die, though set with skill and chosen out with care, that they, while thou on both their spoils dost tread, may crown thy feet that could not crown thy head. A dialogue between Thyrsis and Dorinda. Dorinda begins. When death shall snatch us from these kids, and shut up our divided lids, tell me, Thyrsis, prithee do, whither thou and I must go. To the Elysium. Oh, where is't? A chaste soul can never mist. I know no way but one, our home is our Elysium. Cast thine eye to yonder sky, there the Milky Way doth lie. 'Tis a sure but rugged way that leads to everlasting day. There birds may nest, but how can I, that have no wings and cannot fly? Do not sigh, fair nymph, for fire hath no wings, yet doth aspire till it hit against the pole. Heaven's the centre of the soul. But in Elysium how do they pass eternity away? Oh, there's neither hope nor fear, there's no wolf, no fox, no bear, no need of dog to fetch our stray, our light foot we may give away. And there most sweetly may thine ear feast with the music of the sphere. How I my future state by silent thinking antedate. I prithee, let us spend our time to come in talking of Elysium. Then I'll go on. There sheep are full of softest grass and softest wool. There birds sing concerts, garlands grow, cool winds do whisper, springs do flow. There always is a rising sun, and day is ever but begun. Shepherds there bear equal sway, and every nymph's a queen of May. Ah me, ah me, Dorinda, why dost cry? I'm sick, and fain would die. Convince me now that this is true, by bidding with me all adieu. I cannot live without thee, I will for thee, much more with thee die. Then let us give Corelia charge of the sheep, and thou and I'll pick poppies, and them steep in wine, and drink on't even till we weep. So shall we smoothly pass away in sleep. Clorinda and Damon. Clorinda begins. Damon, come, drive thy flocks this way. No, 'tis too late they went astray. I have a grassy scutcheon spied, where Flora blazons all her pride. The grass I aim to feast thy sheep, the flowers I for thy temples keep. Grass withers, and the flowers too fade. Seize the short joys then, ere they vade. Note, pass away. Compare Latin vadere. Seest thou that unfrequented cave? That den? Love's shrine, but virtue's grave, in whose cool bosom we may lie, safe from the sun, not heaven's eye. Near this a fountain's liquid bell tinkles within the concave shell. Might a soul bathe there and be clean, or slake its drought? What is't you mean? These once had been enticing things, Clorinda, pastures, caves, and springs. And what late change? The other day Pan met me. What did great Pan say? Words that transcend poor shepherd's skill. But he e'er since my songs does fill, and his name swells my slender oat. Sweet must Pan sound in Damon's note. Clorinda's voice might make it sweet. Who would not in Pan's praises meet? Chorus. Of Pan the flowery pastures sing, caves echo, and the fountains ring. Sing then, while he doth us inspire, for all the world is our Pan's choir. Note, this poem is also allegorical, Clorinda representing natural pleasure or desires of the body, which should associate with the virtuous desires of the soul in praising God. A dialogue between the soul and body. Soul. Oh, who shall from this dungeon raise a soul enslaved so many ways, with bolts of bones that fettered stands in feet and manacled in hands, here blinded with an eye, and there deaf with the drumming of an ear, a soul hung up as 'twere in chains of nerves and arteries and veins, tortured besides each other part in a vain head and double heart. Body. Oh, who shall me deliver whole from bonds of this tyrannic soul, which, stretched upright, impales me so that mine own precipice I go, and warms and moves this needless frame? A fever could but do the same, and wanting where its spite to try, has made me live to let me die. A body that could never rest, since this ill spirit it possessed. Soul. What magic could me thus confine within another's grief to pine, where whatsoever it complain, I feel that cannot feel the pain, and all my care itself employs that to preserve which me destroys, constrained not only to endure diseases, but, what's worse, the cure, and ready oft the port to gain, am shipwracked into health again. Body. But physic yet could never reach the maladies thou me dost teach, whom first the cramp of hope does tear, and then the palsy shakes of fear. The pestilence of love does heat, or hatred's hidden ulcer eat. Joy's cheerful madness does perplex, or sorrow's other madness vex, which knowledge forces me to know, and memory will not forgo. What but a soul could have the wit to build me up for sins so fit? So architects do square and hew green trees that in the forest grew. A dialogue between the resolved soul and created pleasure. Courage, my soul, now learn to wield the weight of thine immortal shield. Close on thy head thy helmet bright, balance thy sword against the fight. See where an army strong as fair with silken banners spreads the air. Now, if thou be'st that thing divine, in this day's combat let it shine, and show that nature wants an art to conquer one resolved heart. Pleasure. Welcome the creation's guest, Lord of earth and heaven's heir. Lay aside that warlike crest, and of nature's banquet share, where the souls of fruits and flowers stand prepared to heighten yours. Soul. I sup above and cannot stay, to bait so long upon the way. Note, to bait, to feast, or to rest and refresh oneself. Pleasure. On these downy pillows lie, whose soft plumes will thither fly. On these roses, strowed so plain, lest one leaf thy side should strain. Soul. My gentler rest is on a thought, conscious of doing what I ought. Pleasure. If thou be'st with perfumes pleased, such as oft the gods appeased, thou in fragrant clouds shalt show like another god below. Soul. A soul that knows not to presume is heaven's and its own perfume. Pleasure. Everything does seem to vie, which should first attract thine eye. But since none deserves that grace, in this crystal view thy face. Soul. When the Creator's skill is prized, the rest is all but earth disguised. Pleasure. Hark! How music then prepares for thy stay these charming airs, which the posting winds recall, and suspend the river's fall. Soul. Had I but any time to lose, on this I would it all dispose. Cease, tempter. None can chain a mind whom this sweet cordage cannot bind. Chorus. Earth cannot show so brave a sight as when a single soul does fence, note, ward off, the batteries of alluring sense, and heaven views it with delight. Then persevere, for still new charges sound, and if thou overcomest, thou shalt be crowned. Pleasure. All that's costly, fair, and sweet, which scatteringly doth shine, shall within one beauty meet, and she be only thine. Soul. If things of sight such heavens be, what heavens are those we cannot see? Pleasure. Wheresoe'er thy foot shall go, the minted gold shall lie, till thou purchase all below, and want new worlds to buy. Soul. Were't not for price, who'd value gold? And that's worth naught that can be sold. Pleasure. Wilt thou all the glory have that war or peace commend? Half the world shall be thy slave, the other half thy friend. Soul. What friend, if to myself untrue? What slaves, unless I captive you? Pleasure. Thou shalt know each hidden cause, and see the future time. Try what depth the centre draws, and then to heaven climb. Soul. None thither mounts by the degree of knowledge, but humility. Chorus. Triumph, triumph, victorious soul! The world has not one pleasure more. The rest does lie beyond the pole, and is thine everlasting store. Bermudas. Note. Discovered by Bermudas in 1522, these islands became known as Somers Isles, or the Summer Islands, from Admiral Sir George Somers being wrecked there in 1609. They were afterwards colonized partly by Puritans emigrating from England during the rule of the High Church party. Where the remote Bermudas ride, in the ocean's bosom unespied, from a small boat that rowed along, the listening winds received this song. What should we do but sing his praise, that led us through the watery maze unto an isle so long unknown, and yet far kinder than our own, where he the huge sea monsters racks, that lift the deep upon their backs. He lands us on a grassy stage, safe from the storms and prelates' rage. Notes on the sea monsters. It is said that whales were often cast ashore, as described in Edmund Waller's Battle of the Summer Islands. On the prelates' rage, by their charter the colonists were promised the right of worship. He gave us this eternal spring, which here enamels everything, and sends the fowls to us in care on daily visits through the air. He hangs in shades the orange bright, like golden lamps in a green night, and does in the pomegranates close jewels more rich than Ormus shows. He makes the figs our mouths to meet, and throws the melons at our feet. But apples, note pineapples, plants of such a price, no tree could ever bear them twice. With cedars chosen by his hand, from Lebanon he stores the land, and makes the hollow seas that roar proclaim the ambergris on shore. He cast, of which we rather boast, the gospel's pearl upon our coast, and in these rocks for us did frame a temple where to sound his name. Oh, let our voice his praise exalt, till it arrive at heaven's vault, which thence, perhaps, rebounding, may echo beyond the Mexique Bay. Thus sung they in the English boat, an holy and a cheerful note, and all the way to guide their chime, with falling oars they kept the time. Upon the death of the Lord Hastings. Note. Lord Henry Hastings, eldest son of the 6th Earl of Huntingdon, died in his 20th year on the 2nd June, 1649. Marvell's verses were printed in a collection of elegies on his death, entitled Lacrimae Musarum, to which Herrick, Dryden, and Denham also contributed. Go, intercept some fountain in the vein, whose virgin source yet never steeped the plain. Hastings is dead, and we must find a store of tears untouched, and never wept before. Go, stand betwixt the morning and the flowers, and ere they fall, arrest the early showers. Hastings is dead, and we, disconsolate, with early tears must mourn his early fate. Alas, his virtues did his death presage. Needs must he die that doth outrun his age. The phlegmatic and slow prolongs his day, and on time's wheel sticks like a remoré. What man is he that hath not heaven beguiled, and is not thence mistaken for a child? While those of growth more sudden and more bold are hurried hence as if already old. For there above they number not as here, but weigh to man the geometric year. Note, Plato in his Republic, Book 8, speaks of a geometric number that influences all that is generated by man. Had he but at this measure still increased, and on the tree of life once made a feast as that of knowledge, what loves had he given to earth, and then what jealousies to heaven? But 'tis a maxim of that state that none, lest he become like them, taste more than one. Therefore the democratic stars, note a reference to the Civil War, did rise, and all that worth from hence did ostracize. Yet as some prince that for state jealousy secures his nearest and most loved ally, his thought with richest triumphs entertains, and in the choicest pleasures charms his pains. So he, not banished hence, but there confined, there better recreates his active mind. Before the crystal palace where he dwells, the armed angels hold their carousels, and underneath he views the tournaments of all these subliminary elements. But most he doth the eternal book behold, on which the happy names do stand enrolled, and gladly there can all his kindred claim, but most rejoices at his mother's name. The gods themselves cannot their joy conceal, but draw their veils, and their pure beams reveal. Only they drooping Hymenaeus note the god of marriage, who for sad purple tears his saffron coat, and trails his torches through the starry hall, reversed at his darling's funeral. And Aesculapius, note the god of the healing arts, who, ashamed and stern, himself at once condemneth and Mayherne. Note, Lord Hastings was to have married the daughter of the famous physician Sir Theodore Mayherne. Like some sad chemist, who, prepared to reap the golden harvest, sees his glasses leap. Note, break in an explosion. For how immortal must their race have stood, had Mayherne once been mixed with Hastings' blood! How sweet and verdant would these laurels be, had they been planted on that balsam tree! But what could he, good man, although he bruised all herbs, and them 1,000 ways infused? All he had tried, but all in vain he saw, and wept as we without redress or law. For man, alas, is but the heaven's sport, and art indeed is long, but life is short. To his noble friend Mr. Richard Lovelace, upon his poems. Note, these verses were printed in the 1649 edition of Lovelace's Lucasta. Return to text. Sir, our times are much degenerate from those which your sweet muse, which your good fortune chose, and as complexions alter with the climes, our wits have drawn the infection of our times. That candid age no other way could tell to be ingenious, but by speaking well. Who best could praise, had then the greatest praise. 'Twas more esteemed to give than wear the bays. Modest ambition studied only then to honor not herself, but worthy men. These virtues now are banished out of town. Our civil wars have lost the civic crown. He highest builds, who with most art destroys, and against others' fame his own employs. I see the envious caterpillar sit on the fair blossom of each growing wit. The air's already tainted with the swarms of insects which against you rise in arms, word peckers, paper rats, book scorpions, of wit corrupted the unfashioned sons. The barbed censurers begin to look like the grim consistory on thy book. Note on barbed censurers, critics like the Presbyterian licensers of the press, against whom Milton had written the Areopagitica. And on each line cast a reforming eye, severer than the young presbytery. till when in vain they have thee all perused, you shall for being faultless be accused. Some, reading your Lucasta, will allege you wronged in her the house's privilege. Some that you under sequestration are, because you write when going to the war. Note, a reference to Lovelace's famous song. And one the book prohibits, because Kent their first petition by the author sent. Note, Lovelace had been imprisoned for presenting a petition from Kent for the restoration of the Church of England service. But when the beauteous ladies came to know that their dear Lovelace was endangered so, Lovelace, that thawed the most congealed breast, he who loved best and them defended best, whose hand so rudely grasps the steely brand, whose hand most gently melts the lady's hand, they all in mutiny, though yet undressed, sallied, and would in his defence contest. And one, the loveliest that was yet e'er seen, thinking that I too of the rout had been, mine eyes invaded with a female spite. She knew what pain 'twould be to lose that sight. "Oh no, mistake not," I replied, "for I in your defence or in his cause would die." But he, secure of glory and of time, above their envy or mine aid doth climb. Him valiant'st men and fairest nymphs approve, his book in them finds judgment, with you love. To his worthy friend Dr. Whitty, upon his translation of the Popular Errors. Note, printed in Dr. R. Whitty's translation of Popular Errors, or Errors of People in Physic, by Jacobus Primorosius, published in 1651. Sit further, and make room for thine own fame, where just desert enrolls thy honored name, the good interpreter. Some in this task take off the cypress veil, but leave a mask, changing the Latin, but do more obscure that sense in English which was bright and pure. So of translators they are authors grown, for ill translators make the book their own. Others do strive with words and forced phrase to add such lustre and so many rays, that but to make the vessel shining, they much of the precious metal rub away. He is translation's thief that addeth more, as much as he that taketh from the store the first author. Here he maketh blots that mends, and added beauties are but spots. Celia, whose English doth more richly flow than Tagus, purer than dissolved snow, and sweet as are her lips that speak it, she now learns the tongues of France and Italy. But she is Celia still. No other grace but her own smiles commend that lovely face. Her native beauty's not Italianated, nor her chaste mind into the French translated. Her thoughts are English, though her sparkling wit with other language doth them fitly fit. Translators, learn of her. But stay, I slide down into error with the vulgar tide. Women must not teach here. The doctor doth stint them to caudles, almond milk, and broth. So I reform, and surely as will all whose happy eyes on thy translation fall. I see the people hastening to thy book, liking themselves the worse the more they look, and so disliking that they nothing see now worth the liking but thy book and thee. And if I judgment have, I censure right, for something guides my hand that I must write. You have translation statutes best fulfilled, that handling neither sully nor would gild. On Mr. Milton's Paradise Lost. Note, printed in the 1674 edition of Milton's poem. When I beheld the poet blind, yet bold, in slender book his vast design unfold, Messiah crowned, God's reconciled decree, rebelling angels, the forbidden tree, heaven, hell, earth, chaos, all, the argument held me a while misdoubting his intent, that he would ruin, for I saw him strong, the sacred truths to fable and old song. So Samson groped the temple's posts in spite. the world o'erwhelming to revenge his sight. Yet, as I read, soon growing less severe, I liked his project, the success did fear. Through that wide field how he his way should find, or which lame faith leads understanding blind, lest he perplexed the things he would explain, and what was easy he should render vain. Or, if a work so infinite he spanned, jealous I was that some less skilful hand, such as disquiet always what is well, and by ill imitating would excel, might hence presume the whole creation's day to change in scenes, and show it in a play. Note, Dryden had asked if he might do so, and Milton had told him he might tag his verses. Pardon me, mighty poet, nor despise my causeless, yet not impious surmise. But I am now convinced, and none will dare within thy labours to pretend a share. Thou hast not missed one thought that could be fit, and all that was improper dost omit. So that no room is here for writers left, but to detect their ignorance or theft. That majesty through which thy work doth reign draws the devout, deterring the profane, and things divine thou treat'st of in such state as them preserves and thee inviolate. At once delight and horror on us seize, thou sing'st with so much gravity and ease, and above human flight dost soar aloft with plume so strong, so equal, and so soft, the bird named from that paradise you sing, so never flags, but always keeps on wing. Note, this error, which even Buffon fell into, arose from the dead birds of paradise being sent to Europe with their feet cut off. Where couldst thou words of such a compass find? Whence furnish such a vast expanse of mind? Just heaven thee, like Tiresias, to requite, rewards with prophecy thy loss of sight. Well mightst thou scorn thy readers to allure with tinkling rhyme, of thy own sense secure, while the town bays writes all the while and spells, and like a pack-horse tires without his bells. Note, Dryden, called Bayes in the Duke of Buckingham's satirical piece, generally wrote in rhyme, and he explained away Milton's preference for blank verse as being due to his want of ability to rhyme easily. On the other hand, Milton is said to have called Dryden a great rhymer, but no poet. Return to text. Their fancies like our bushy points appear, and poets tag them, we for fashion wear. Note, tag, the very word that Milton used in giving Dryden a surly permission to turn Paradise Lost into a play, was a metal point worn at the end of laces in fastening dresses. It feebly jingled, and it was fashionable. I too, transported by the mode, offend, and while I meant to praise thee, miscommend. Note, original edition, must commend. Thy verse, created like thy theme sublime, in number, weight, and measure, needs not rhyme. An epitaph upon blank. Enough, and leave the rest to fame. 'Tis to commend her but to name. Courtship, which living she declined, when dead to offer were unkind. Where never any could speak ill, who would officious praises spill? Nor can the truest wit or friend without detracting her commend. To say she lived a virgin chaste in this age, loose and all unlaced, nor was, when vice is so allowed, of virtue or ashamed or proud, that her soul was on heaven so bent, no minute but it came and went, that ready her last debt to pay, she summed her life up every day, modest as morn, as midday bright, gentle as evening, cool as night. 'Tis true, but all too weakly said. 'Twas more significant, she's dead. Two songs at the marriage of the Lord Fauconberg and the Lady Mary Cromwell. Note, on the 19th of November, 1657, Mary, the Lord Protector's third daughter, who was famous for her beauty, was married to Thomas Pillazy, then Viscount, afterwards Earl of Fauconberg, a cousin of Lord Fairfax. The first song, Chorus, Endymion, Luna. Chorus. The astrologer's own eyes are set, and even wolves the sheep forget. Only this shepherd late and soon upon this hill outwakes the moon. Hark how he sings with sad delight through the clear and silent night. Endymion. Cynthia, O Cynthia, turn thine ear, nor scorn Endymion's plaints to hear. As we our flocks, so you command the fleecy clouds with silver wand. Cynthia. If thou a mortal, rather sleep, or if the shepherd, watch thy sheep. Endymion. The shepherd, since he saw thine eyes, and sheep are both thy sacrifice, nor merits he a mortal's name that burns with an immortal flame. Cynthia. I have enough for me to do, ruling the waves that ebb and flow. Endymion. Since thou disdain'st not then to share on sublunary things thy care, rather restrain these double seas, mine eyes, uncessant deluges. Cynthia. My wakeful lamp all night must move, securing their repose above. Endymion. If therefore thy resplendent ray can make a night more bright than day, shine through this obscurer breast, with shades of deep despair oppressed. Chorus. Courage, Endymion, boldly woo. Anchises was a shepherd too, yet is her younger sister laid sporting with him in Ida's shade. And Cynthia, though the strongest, seeks but the honour to have held out longest. Endymion. Here unto Latmus' top I climb. How far below thine orb sublime! O why, as well as eyes to see, have I not arms that reach to thee? Cynthia. 'Tis needless then that I refuse, would you but your own reason use. Endymion. Though I so high may not pretend, it is the same so you descend. Cynthia. These stars would say I do them wrong, rivals each one, for thee too strong. Endymion. The stars are fixed unto their sphere, and cannot, though they would, come near. Less loves set off each other's praise, while stars eclipse by mixing rays. Cynthia. That cave is dark. Endymion. Then none can spy, or shine thou there, and 'tis the sky. Chorus. Joy to Endymion, for he has Cynthia's favour won, and Jove himself approves with his serenest influence their loves. For he did never love to pair his progeny above the air, but to be honest, valiant, wise, makes mortals matches fit for deities. Note on pairing his progeny above the air. It was reported that Mazarin had proposed that Charles II should marry Cromwell's daughter. The second song, Hobbinol, Phyllis, Tomalin. Hobbinol. Phyllis, Tomalin, away! Never such a merry day, for the northern shepherd's son has Menalcas' daughter won. Phyllis. Stay till I some flowers have tied in a garland for the bride. Tomalin. If thou wouldst a garland bring, Phyllis, you may wait the spring. They have chosen such an hour when she is the only flower. Phyllis. Let's not then at least be seen without each a sprig of green. Hobbinol. Fear not, at Menalcas' hall there are bays enough for all. He, when young as we, did graze, but when old he planted bays. Tomalin. Here she comes, but with a look far more catching than my hook. 'Twas those eyes, I now dare swear, led our lambs we knew not where. Hobbinol. Not our lambs' own fleeces are curled so lovely as her hair, nor our sheep new washed can be half so white or sweet as she. Phyllis. He so looks as fit to keep somewhat else than silly sheep. Hobbinol. Come, let's in some carol new pay to love and them their due.
Joy to that happy pair,
whose hopes united banish our despair. What shepherd could for love pretend, whilst all the nymphs on Damon's choice attend? What shepherdess could hope to wed before Marina's turn were sped? Now lesser beauties may take place, and meaner virtues come in play, while they, looking from high, shall grace our flocks and us with a propitious eye. But what is most, the gentle swain no more shall need of love complain, but virtue shall be beauty's hire, and those be equal that have equal fire. Marina yields, who dares be coy, or who despair now Damon does enjoy? Joy to that happy pair, whose hopes united banish our despair. An Horatian Ode upon Cromwell's return from Ireland. Note: Cromwell left Ireland on the 26th May, 1650, and proceeded to Scotland on the 28th June, winning the Battle of Dunbar on the 3rd of September. The forward youth that would appear must now forsake his muses dear, nor in the shadows sing his numbers languishing. 'Tis time to leave the books in dust, and oil th' unused armour's rust, removing from the wall the corslet of the hall. So restless Cromwell could not cease in the inglorious arts of peace, but through adventurous war urged his active star. And like the three-forked lightning first breaking the clouds where it was nursed, did thorough his own side his fiery way divide. For 'tis all one to courage high, the emulous or enemy, and with such to enclose is more than to oppose. Note, i.e. Cromwell broke away from his own party because as a man of high courage his genius was provoked as much by rivalry as by hostility, and more by restraint than by opposition. Return to text. Then burning through the air he went, and palaces and temples rent, and Caesar's head at last did through his laurels blast. 'Tis madness to resist or blame the force of angry heaven's flame, and, if we would speak true, much to the man is due, who from his private gardens, where he lived reserved and austere, as if his highest plot to plant the bergamot, could by industrious valor climb to ruin the great work of time, and cast the kingdoms old into another mould, though justice against fate complain, and plead the ancient rights in vain. But those do hold or break as men are strong or weak. Nature, that hateth emptiness, allows of penetration less, and therefore must make room where greater spirits come. What field of all the civil war where his were not the deepest scar? And Hampden shows what part he had of wiser art. Note: Marvell seems to have been mistaken in thinking that Cromwell lured the king to his doom. Return to text. And Hampden shows what part he had of wiser art, where, twining subtle fears with hope, he wove a net of such a scope that Charles himself might chase to Carisbrooke's narrow case, that thence the royal actor born the tragic scaffold might adorn, while round the armed bands did clap their bloody hands. He nothing common did or mean upon that memorable scene, but with his keener eye the axe's edge did try, nor called the gods with vulgar spite to vindicate his helpless right, but bowed his comely head down as upon a bed. This was that memorable hour which first assured the forced power, note, forced by fate. So when they did design the Capitol's first line, a bleeding head where they begun did fright the architects to run, and yet in that the state foresaw its happy fate. Note: in digging the foundations of the Capitol, the Romans, it was related, found the head of one Tullius, which was accepted as an omen that Rome would be the head of the world. And now the Irish are ashamed to see themselves in 1 year tamed. So much one man can do that does both act and know. They can affirm his praises best, and have, though overcome, confessed how good he is, how just, and fit for highest trust. nor yet grown stiffer with command, but still in the Republic's hand, how fit he is to sway that can so well obey. He to the Commons' feet presents a kingdom for his first year's rent, and what he may, forbears his fame to make it theirs, and has his sword and spoils ungirt to lay them at the public's skirt. So when the falcon high falls heavy from the sky, she having killed, no more doth search but on the next green branch to perch, where when he first does lure, the falconer has her sure. What may not then our isle presume, while victory his crest does plume? What may not others fear, if thus he crowns each year? As Caesar, he, ere long to Gaul, to Italy and Hannibal, and to all states not free, shall climacteric be. Note, dangerous or portending change. The Pict no shelter now shall find within his party-colored mind, but from this valor sad, note, sober valor, shrink underneath the plaid. Happy if in the tufted brake the English hunter him mistake, nor lay his hounds in near the Caledonian deer. But thou, the war's and fortune's son, march indefatigably on, and for the last effect still keep the sword erect. Besides the force it has to fright the spirits of the shady night, the same arts that did gain a power must it maintain. End of Poems, Section 3. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Thomas Copeland.